All right, hi everybody. My name is Morinigo, and I'm very excited to be here in JSWORLD Conference. I hope that you're having fun and you're learning a lot about these new technologies and of course JavaScript. Today, I'm gonna talk about one of the things that are very popular nowadays, and it's all about progressive web apps. If you check the lineup, check that there are other speakers also talking about this topic. But today I will talk specifically about a service worker. So what is a service worker? Sometimes it's something that we developers struggle a little bit, but today we are gonna learn about what is it, how does it work, what type of service worker should I implement, or even is there any strategies that I need to follow? So yeah, let's start. First of all, as I told you before, we are going to talk about progressive web apps. So if you don't know what is it, it's very popular right now, but it's not because it's just something that is trendy. It's because it's all about to make your web app a really good experience to the user. But what does it mean? What is aPWA? Let's see. So aPWA basically brings a native app-like experience into the browser and is of course using web technologies like JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So the idea is to have a similar experience in your mobile device that is kind of very close to a native app. So in order to do that, we need to follow some things like user experience or even optimize your web app. But what does it mean in terms of technology for a developer? Like, how do you start? You just do a simple web app and that's it? No, there are three things that you have to know that you need to apply to have aPWA. So the very first one is you need to have HTTPS. Your web app should be safe to the user. Let's say that you are building a shopping cart. Well, if the user needs to make certain kind of transactions, those transactions need to be safe. And nowadays, it's very simple to implement HTTPS. Other thing that you have to know that HTTPS is the very first step to build your PWA. So in order to do the other things that you need to apply in your PWA, the very first part is to have HTTPS. Otherwise, for example, you're not going to be able to implement service worker. The second one is a manifest file. A manifest file is the one that will allow you to have installability in your PWA. Something that developers and users really like about progressive web apps is the ability to have it installed in their phones. So, for example, or desktop. So, for example, they can have an icon. So it looks really similar to a native app. But we're not going to talk about that today. Today, we're going to talk about the third technology that we will use, and is service worker. So the service worker is the big star of the night. We are going to learn, first of all, what is it? A service worker is basically a script, and it's written in JavaScript. And that allows intercepting and control of network requests and asset catching from the web browser. Maybe it sounds a little bit like, what is it? So what you need to remember is, what if you have the chance to control all the requests that are coming back and forth into your web app? That's why it's a trick to have HTTPS, because it sounds really dangerous. So we need to make sure that these new scripts need to be safe. Okay, So basically, we have a service worker that is a script. Again, it's written in JavaScript, and then will allow us to intercept and control network requests. And it has like a life cycle that I'm gonna explain in a very simple way. Okay, so this is what I call the service worker poke evolution. I think everybody knows Pokemon, so I can easily compare the evolution of a service worker with the evolution of Charmander, this lovely creature that we see here. Okay, so let's start with the very first stage. Before installing, the browser should check if the service worker already exists. So in order to do that, we need to register the service worker. That is the very first stage. Second stage is the Charmeleon one. And yeah, I'm not gonna like sing the Pokemon rap and all that stuff. No. If you're hoping that I'm gonna do that, I'm not. So going back, the second stage is install. Once that the browser check that if already exists. If it doesn't exist, it will install our service worker. So here we're going to tell which files are going to be cached and the content that you add, for example, which are the URLs that you're going to catch. Those contents will be added immediately to the cache and service from the cache whenever a page requests it. Okay, so very simple, the very first part. And then the third part, which is the one that it does the magic. Once you have your resources cached, you need to tell the service worker what to do with them. So the service worker will manage and do something with that content. I will explain also with an example so you can see this with code. So for this, there is an event called fetch that allows you to do this. So here's when the magic happens. A fetch event runs every time any document in the scope of a service worker is fetched, such as when a page is loaded or when a resource like a script or an image is added, or for example, an API call is made. You can attach a fetch event listener to the service worker, then call the respond with method on the event to manage your HTTP responses and do something with it. The other part that we need to know, and is the last part, is activate. With activate is the only thing that it will do is it will check basically if you have any changes in your cache files. If it has any changes, it will update your service worker, and that's it. So be wise, and first of all, before add a service worker to your aPWA, you need to check what is a good caching strategy. But again, it's not just catching or anything like that. It's also about what can we do with service workers. So going back to, I want to show you some code. This is the very first part. As you can see here, you have some URLs to catch. It can be images, it can be a CSS file, or even you can have an HTML website that you want to provide when your app is offline. So again, the very first part, as we said, is install. And here what we will do is to add these files to our service worker. Well, let's go a little bit back to fetch, because fetch has its own cycle, its own way to work. So let me show you how is the logic behind fetch. Okay, this is my diagram. I hope that you can easily read it. If not, I accept feedback. So, okay, we have the browser. The browser is gonna make a request, okay? And then the request is gonna check, okay, this information, is it catch? Which means that, let's say that I'm gonna, I need to ask to the browser or make a request. I need to make a request about an image. So is this image catch? Yeah, if yes, it's gonna serve from the catch. Otherwise, it needs to fetch from the network. So it's gonna do an extra step. So if it's available from the network, it's gonna serve from the network. And let's say that if it's not available in the network, it's gonna show a fallback. This very first last part is so important because we need to think like, what if that image is not available in our caching or is not available in the network? We need to provide something to the user, not just like, a blank page or something that is not good to the user. So the user is not having something like a good user experience, by the way. Okay, so this very first part, there's something that we can do. And there's something called offline fallback page. Again, let's say that our website is running in a really low connection, and usually you can have that dinosaur that tells you when it's not available. But instead of that, there are a lot of different strategies that you can do in order to improve that experience. And one is having an offline fallback page. The offline fallback page is gonna just make the user happy, that first thing first, and it's gonna let them know when they're offline. When you are suddenly surfing on the internet and then you are without any connection, and then maybe you lose the work that you were doing, or you thought that you were offline, you were online, and then you suddenly were trying to buy something and it was not possible because you suddenly started to be offline. Well, that's the idea. Tell the user that they are offline and provide a better experience. And for that, you can easily create an offline page with HTML and catch these resources. I'm going to show you how. It's very simple, and it is something that you can start doing now and on the top of a service worker. So if you already create a service worker with the steps that I mentioned before, you can also add an offline page. So let's take a look. Here in the install step that I showed you previously, if you check in the URLs to catch, you have the offline.html. That offline.html, it can be whatever you want. It can contain an image, a message saying, apologize, you're offline, you can contact us, or whatever you want. So you're gonna catch these HTML, this view. So if the network fails, it can have this fallback website, and then that's it. You are gonna be able to show something that when you don't have any connectivity at all. But there's another thing that I want to show you related with service worker, and are called strategies. So again, before we've been talking about offline and then try to see if we have a resource that is cached or is in the network. Well, you can have different types of strategies depending on which type of resources you want to show to the user or you want to request to the browser. The very first one is headers. So let me show you something related with headers. Remember, let's go back to fetch. So remember that fetch will control these resources that we previously catch before. Okay, so here, let's say that we want to catch and have another thing that is offline. For example, our website has different views, and one of these views are related with a shopping cart. One of the things that we can do is control this request. For example, here in our code, we can see the navigation request HTML. So if the request on headers includes whatever, in this case, shopping cart, you can do something inside that block of code. For example, it can be show the offline fallback page that we made before. That's one of the things. The other thing that is very, very convenient is a strategy related with pages. And again, with these headers, we can specifically ask them to do something with these pages. In this case, you can see that here in our code, it includes, we talk about text and .html, which means that, okay, I want to do something. If I have this, if I'm requesting pages, so do something. In this case, as I told you before, we are going to return the fallback page. You can see here in return in the error, we are providing what we are going to do. In this case is the offline.html. Okay, and this is another strategy and very, very useful. Do you remember that we've been talking about images and having the chance to do something in the case if any resource is not available? Well, we can also have a strategy related with images. In this case, in our header, we're gonna change, instead of having as before text HTML, what is changing here is includes image. And then let's say we can again do something, and it's all up to us. In the following block of code, let's analyze this a little bit. So we have includes image, and then event respond with, and then if I'm requesting an image, then you have two different things. The very first one is, okay, try to see if it's available in the network. If not, we're gonna manage what it's going to do in our catch an error. And in this case, what I'm doing is, because at that moment I was trying to do a web app that was serving some images and were related with COVID, and some of those images were not available the whole time in my network. So let's say that media COVID image is not available. That is my request. Okay, I'm gonna have one image that it was cached before. So that is as the same as my fallback page. I can have a fallback image. So this previously, we already catch our images, like in this case, COVID pandemic and goals header. Those images should be caught at the very first step when we install our service worker. So the good thing and the magic about this is that, let's say that we're not going to be able to retrieve this image from our network. It's okay. We have a fallback image. And then you can combine these different types of strategies and do different fetch depending on image, pages, and even do like everything else. What with everything else is like having a certain kind of strategy for the rest of the things that you need to follow. Again, so in this case, when we finish our fetch in our service worker, we need to tell them, okay, do this with everything else that you're not going to be able to find in the network. So what we'll just do is just it's gonna return a response if it's in the cache, and if not, that's it. Okay, so that's basically how it works. You need to remember, service worker gives you the ability to have offline capabilities. It has a cycle from register to install to fetch to activate. And then in fetch, you have also a different cycle. And then in fetch, you will do this magic of controlling your request. Very amazing. And it's a little bit more simple than sometimes we can struggle about service work. We think like, oh, how complicated. And now you have so many resources to see what else you can do with a service worker. So let's recap a little bit about what we saw today. We saw what is a service worker. But before that, we need to learn that progressive web apps are a way to bring native app-like experience in the browser. We need, in order to create our aPWA, HTTPS, a manifest file, and a service worker. That's what we've been talking today. We again learned that service workers are just scripts that basically it will allow you to control the requests out to the network. But remember, before having service worker, you need to have HTTPS in your web app. We also learned about fetch, when the magic happens, when actually you can put the code that you need to control these requests to the web. And then the different type of strategies related with headers. We can use headers to create proper strategies around pages, images, and everything else during fetch. So you can control all of these resources, everything at once in fetch. I will give you also some resources if you're interested. Of course, it can be more complex and you can check different types of service worker and different tools. So I need to let you know that we have a blog Medium. You can check Samsung Internet. Besides that, you can also check, this is a wonderful book that is called Going Offline by Jeremy Keith. It helped me a lot into myself to understand and go deeply into service workers. Of course, I usually recommend the MDN documentation if you want to check what's going on behind progressive web apps in general. And you can also see I have this same slide under this URL. I didn't change that, so you can just go into this URL if you want my images and also my Pocky Evolution service worker. Okay, but maybe you're wondering, but who are you? So my name is Laura. I'm originally from Argentina, but I'm based in London. I love what I do because I dedicate myself to build a better internet world from the Samsung Internet team. I'm also a Women Tech Makers ambassador and a Google Developer expert for Firebase. I love JavaScript. I love JavaScript. It's given me like, that's what I've been doing like since years and since remote times, even before Pikachu was a 3D movie thing. So thank you so much for being here. I hope that, again, you're having fun and you're learning a lot about this conference. I will see you during the live Q&A. And of course, you can contact me. My Twitter is this is the okay. You can also contact me at Masantum Internet. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.